Welcome. New module, children's literature. This is a module which is effectively about children's literature. You won't find that any surprise at all given the title of the module. But what you might find more of a surprise is that our focus is going to be on picture books. There are, of course, different types of children's literature. You've probably read some of them, whether it's the Twilight novels or whether it's Harry Potter or whether it's The Hobbit even. Those are, if you like, more grown-up fictions which are written for children, books with very few pictures in them. But over the last few years, there's been increasing attention given to those books which are targeted at children of a much younger age, at the very earliest developmental stages. Picture books, books with huge pictures in, which can be dismissed. It's just picture books, it's too simple, there's not much going on there, it's not remotely of any interest at all. Well, actually it is. And when you think about it, of all the literature that we tend to read, perhaps the literature which is the most formative are the picture books to which we're exposed when we are at our most developmental stages early in our childhood. They give us fundamental understandings of the way in which the world works. The combination of visual images and text enables us to create a much more synthetical understanding of the way in which we visualize the world and the way in which words generate that understanding of the world for us. Picture books have become a real hot topic of interest in academic study over the years, not only within teaching fields but in general academic fields. This is going to be our focus of study. We're going to be looking in particular at how picture books use fantasy. How do we understand the concept of fantasy? We know when we listen to children's storybooks or when we read children's picture books, they're full of monsters and dragons and princesses. And why is it that fantasy is such an important element to children's picture books and children's stories? Well, we're going to explore some of the reasons for that. We're also going to explore some of the ways in which children's picture books perpetuate notions of ideologies. Now, this is where this group is going to find things quite interesting, because some of you will have already done literature and theory, which effectively talks about how you can identify ideological patterns within literature, and some of you won't have done that module yet. Hopefully the interaction of all of you together, you'll support each other in your understanding of that. But effectively we understand that children's picture books impose upon children as they grow up a certain understanding or ideology of the way in which the world works. What is the function of women? Who has power? Who has a right to power? How should difference be treated? These are social expectations and understandings. If picture books are written about an age in which generally men are the heads of the household and men are the ones who have the power and women are merely expected to serve a domestic or subordinate role to men, then you will see those ideologies about gender power structures reflected in the picture books that children grow up reading. To what extent, then, is those gender assumptions imposed upon children or imprinted upon children because of those books that they read at such an early age? What would happen if they were to read picture books which presented them with a very, very different set of gender politics? Would they grow up having a very, very different set of gender ideologies? What about power structures? We read stories in which you have noble princes of royal birth, who are powerful and they are good and they are honest and they are right and they are just. Does that teach us that people who are born into power are inherently, innately better than the rest of us? Does our willingness to allow a bunch of privileged aristocrats to simply rule us just because they happen to have a title, is our willingness for that somehow derived from the fact that we've grown up reading stories and being bombarded with messages that tell us that they are better than the rest of us? What would happen if we grew up reading stories that said something different? Would our attitudes to power, would our attitudes to authority be different? We're going to explore some of those ideological assumptions as well. But we're also going to look at how children develop and grow. How do picture books influence children? Children go through various developmental stages. We know this, and there are plenty of theories which explore that. I'm not going to even begin to touch upon the full range of theories of children's development that there are out there, but we're going to explore some of them, and we're going to see how children's picture books can interact with those developmental stages. We're going to look at how picture books are written. We're going to look at how there is an interaction between the image that you see in a picture book and the text which is on the picture book. Sometimes there's no pictures, sometimes there's only a picture, sometimes there's a text which seems to contradict what the picture says, sometimes there's a text which simply describes what the picture is showing. Well, what impact does that have on the way in which children receive those texts and perceive those texts? How can we understand that interaction as it takes place? How can we understand the way in which children's picture books use narrative, use modes of discourse? We think about modes of discourse in writing, and we often think that there's a very simple way of writing and a very complex way of writing. Picture books are designed for children, but often they demonstrate some incredibly sophisticated and complex methods of discourse and narrative. Why? Why does it work? How does it work? Ultimately, all of this is going to be assessed in an essay, and part of the essay is going to involve a creative element. As we explore these ideas, as we explore the influences, as we explore the different ways in which a picture book can reflect ideology, can reflect fundamental assumptions, can interact with developmental stages of children, can use different forms of narrative, you're going to demonstrate your understanding of those by actually creating a picture book of your own. We're going to use a very, very easy and simple online tool in order to do that, which will provide you with a set of pictures. You have to put the picture into your book, and you have to create the text, which is going to create an interaction between that image and the text in order to tell a story which is going to do what? Challenge ideology, reflect ideology, help children cope with particular developmental problems, whether it be sibling rivalry, whether it be grief or absence of parents, whether it be the nervousness, whether it be kind of Lacanian mirror stages, self-identity, whatever. What story do you want to tell? What do you want to engage with? How are you going to use a picture book in order to do those? The process of creating those stories is one in which you think about the practice of storybook writing and the theories of storybook writing. And as you do it, you're going to write the rest of the essay explaining that process, finding those links, explaining and using the sources which have helped you develop those ideas, giving examples of other picture books that have done the same things or have done other things, and hopefully end up with an essay which is both critical and creative. There'll be much more advice on this, and there is advice in the module guide as well, but I hope that you can find this exciting.